Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Brothers and sisters, welcome back to another how-to video. In today's video, we will be talking about how to do a qurbani or a udhiyah. All praises to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, the creator of the heavens and the universe. He subhanahu wa ta'ala, through His mercy, has given us special seasons of worship which bring us many opportunities to gain more reward and to get closer to Him. Among these special seasons of worship are the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preferred over all the other days of the year. Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu reported that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "There are no days in which righteous deeds are more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than these 10 days." So what is the qurbani? The qurbani or udhiyah as it is named is one of the rituals of Islam that is prescribed in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. Therefore turn in prayer to your Lord and sacrifice to Him only. Also it is narrated that Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he stayed in Medina for 10 years offering the sacrifice every year on Eid. The udhiyah or qurbani is a heavily emphasized sunnah, which is known as sunnah mu'akkada. Some scholars have mentioned that it is wajib or obligatory, and in any case, the udhiyah is something that is highly encouraged and recommended and should be done. The word udhiyah or qurbani refers to the animal, i.e. the camel, the cattle or sheep that is sacrificed as an act of worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the country in which the person offering the sacrifice lives, or it can be done in a different country. The sacrifice is allowed to take place from the period after the Eid prayer until the last day of Tashriq, which is the 13th of Dhul Hijjah. The basic principle is that the qurbani is required from one who is alive on behalf of himself and the members of his household. It should be offered if one can afford the price of the udhiyah, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in a hadith, whoever can afford it but does not offer a sacrifice, let him not come near our prayer place. There is no difference between men and women in this regard. If a woman is living on her own or with her children, then they should offer the udhiyah. For the one who wants to offer a sacrifice or qurbani, then he must refrain from cutting his hair and nails from the beginning of the 10 days until he has offered the sacrifice. This is because the Prophet ﷺ said, when you see the new moon of Dhul Hijjah, if any of you wants to offer a sacrifice, then he should stop cutting his hair and nails until he has offered the sacrifice. If a person removes some of his hair during the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah because he is not planning to offer a sacrifice, then he decides to offer a sacrifice, he should refrain from cutting his hair or nails from the moment he takes the decision. Conditions of udhiyah. The animal should be free of any faults. The Prophet ﷺ said, there are 4 which will not do for sacrifice: a one-eyed animal whose defect is obvious, a sick animal whose sickness is obvious, a lame animal whose limp is obvious, and an emaciated animal that has no marrow in its bones. It is also disliked to sacrifice animals with milder defects, such as an animal with a horn or ear missing, or an animal with slits in its ear. This is because the udhiyah is an act of worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only accepts that which is good. So we should try as much as possible to honor the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is forbidden to sell the animal. If an animal has been selected for the sacrifice, it is not permissible to sell it or give it away, except in exchange for one that is better. The animal should be sacrificed at the specified time, which is from after the prayer and khutbah of Eid until sunset on the last day of Tashriq, which is the 13th of Dhul Hijjah. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever sacrifices before the prayer, let him repeat it. What should be done with the sacrifice? It is preferred for the one who has made a sacrifice to not eat anything before he eats from the meat of the sacrifice. This is because the Prophet ﷺ said, "Let every man eat from his sacrifice." It is preferred to divide the meat into three: 1/3 to be eaten, 1/3 to be given as gifts, and 1/3 to be given in charity. How much qurbani should I sacrifice? 1 sheep is sufficient for a man and his family. It is permissible for 7 people to share a camel or a cow, as it is mentioned in a hadith narrated by Jabir radiallahu anhu, who said, "We sacrificed at Al-Hudaybiyah with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam a camel for 7 and a cow for 7. 1/7 of a camel or a cow is equivalent to 1 sheep. So if a man was to sacrifice 1/7 of a camel or cow on behalf of himself and his family, then that is sufficient. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who follow the sunnah of his beloved Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and to make us from those who do those things which are pleasing to him. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
If you found this video helpful, please make sure to like, subscribe and share with your friends. For more videos like this, check out our full how-to playlist in the description below. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.